Ryan Molnar, and I am the vocalist and guitarist for Average Mammals.
My name is Grant H. Hagen, and I play bass in the band.
My name is Joshua Lubavitch, and I play drums and I sing.
Darnay Olson, former guitarist and backing vocalist.
When we were looking for band names, we tried all sorts of different band names.
Ryan did an IQ test, and at the end of the IQ test, it told him that he was an average mammal.
I thought that was cool sounding because it's like, I like the idea of us thinking that we're not better than anyone else.
I feel like it fits us more than anything else. I mean, we're kind of average people just making music that we love.
I don't think I'm better than anybody, so that's why the name makes sense for me.
That's important for us.
I fought against the band name for a long time. My go-to story when people always ask me was I was outvoted.
I had an idea for an album name, and it was going to be the Party House Circuit. For some reason, it wasn't totally liked by everyone. No one was sold on it. So I think I just kind of went through each track, and I was like, well, what is it that ties all these songs together? And I kind of find the common thread is that there's influences. You're always influenced by something, and each one of these songs was inspired by something, so it was influenced by something.
Life Under the Influence just made sense to me for some reason. Every song is so different from each other because they were all different time periods, there were different people involved, there were different things going on. All these different things that were kind of influencing the record to turn out the way it was. It was just kind of life in its own kind of is what influenced the record.
We were trying to figure out album art.
Darnay had this job where he's cleaning out houses, and one day he found this reel-to-reel tape recorder.
The tape head on it was all rusty, so it wasn't any good.
Ryan was like, well, it'd look really cool if we broke it.
Ryan threw it on the ground and started smashing it and started taking photos of it. It wasn't ever really a planned thing, it just kind of happened.
Yeah, it was just a cool looking tape player, and we decided it needed a little more character, so we just brought it out on the sidewalk and kind of beat the crap out of it for a little bit until it looked just right.
We just took a bunch of pictures and picked the best one.
Oh, this is no good. Throw it on the floor and just start smashing it.
Artistic.
Nels Jensen, I would say co-producer because we all did everything pretty much together, and then engineer.
Nels was Ryan and I's teacher at first.
Before I met him, I swear, in my head he was just this old British guy. He made it out there, and then he's not British at all.
Noticed one day that he had a Bad Religion tattoo, so I made sure I wore a Bad Religion t-shirt to his class every time we had his class.
Darnay had a little crush on me, which was very flattering, and I don't think I ever heard Ryan talk at all. That includes when he was at the studio. I don't actually remember.
The album was recorded at the Pi Studios
In Pasadena, California.
At the Pi, it's full music production. It's recording, producing, doing just pretty much start to finish. That's what we do here. We make dreams come true. That's what we do at the Pi Studios.
We all packed up all of our stuff into Darnay's van.
We jumped in my van. We didn't even know if it was going to make it. And just hit the road.
I look like this most of the time. I had a slinky that I would I'd tangle it into knots and spend hours untangling it.
I brought a book. I read that for 20 minutes and fell asleep while we were still in Minnesota, and I never picked it up again. Don't even know what book it was.
I remember trying to do writing. I didn't actually accomplish any while being in the van.
The morning we were supposed to leave,
We had a going away party the night before.
We went to go pick up Grant.
and Grant wasn't answering his phone.
No one could get a hold of me because I was still passed out.
So finally, we went to his house.
We were gonna go up and knock on his door, and we kind of were following this trail of blood.
Little blood splotches on the ground.
Just had to follow the trail of blood up to my door.
We walk in, and Grant was standing there putting stuff into a bag, and he turns, and his face was just scraped up.
And I go, "What happened to your face?" And he just gave me the finger. And that's all. That's it. He didn't want to talk about it.
I was in a world of hurt. I won't drink Rumplemans anymore. It's about 12 feet from my house, and I fell off my pedal bike. I chipped my tooth, and I messed my face up and my knuckles up. And going out to record an album, real smart, I know, but...
First stop was in Omaha. We got a hotel room in Omaha, Nebraska.
We also wanted to see this bar called O'Leavers.
I remember hanging out outside in their little patio section, and they had these little string lights, and I don't know, it was nice out, and so we just got to chill, and it was a really nice vibe, and it was a good break away from being stuck in the van all day.
When we pulled up, I was like, cool, so we're just going in someone's apartment to record. And then he opens up the door, and it's like this, it's a soundproof door, so it's like really thick. And I went in, and I was like, oh my god, this is better than anything that I ever thought that we would be recording in.
I remember it was a lot nicer than any other recording setup that we'd had before.
The studio's really cool. All sorts of amps in the amp room, and like a shelf full of drums underneath the stairs, all sorts of like pedals and stuff. All sorts of just cool vintage gear.
It was very comfortable for me because it was a familiar setting because I'd been there before. For me, it was a lot easier, I think, because it was walking into a familiar place.
We tried to record everything together. Nell set us all up in the live room.
Oh, we know the songs, we got this, and then it's like, oh, but you gotta play them good. Like time.
I don't know, I've always blamed it on myself. We were falling off the click. We weren't vibing all together. And I feel like that was partially nerves.
We were all struggling with trying to listen to the click, trying to follow Josh, trying to hear each other, trying to do everything with all this stuff going on.
Had we went a different route, we probably would have been able to do it live. It probably would have taken the nerves off, and we would have got some feels on the album. I mean, I wouldn't change anything on the album now, but if I could go back to the recording process, I think that it would have been a cool thing to try.
The album would have had a different energy for sure.
Probably just would have given maybe a tighter feel.
But it lasted for like 15 minutes. It wasn't working.
So then we decided we should just do everything separate, so at least the parts are on time, which is a good assessment. We went to, it was probably Target. We got some big poster board.
2 big boards that had, all the different titles and like broke down by sections how to do.
So that we know what we've accomplished, what we need to work on.
They're just trying to bring order to the chaos, essentially.
So we just went and bought a bunch of stupid stickers, and whenever anybody finished something and did good, you got your special sticker.
I had Star Wars stickers. Josh had Hello Kitty stickers.
Mine were Hello Kitty. I accept that.
Seemed like a good idea. You might as well organize it and write down all the little parts that you want, what you need, what you'd like to hear out of it.
Another organizational tool that we use is called Rock Talk.
Rock Talk was at the end of every studio session for the day.
Sit up in the control room and talk about what we got done for the day, kind of get an idea of what we wanted to do for the next day.
Kind of like a guided conversation on what we're trying to do, or
what we can do to make songs better.
It's good to have a plan. I mean, you have to have a plan. When you only have a month to do an album, you have to really know what you're going to do.
We lived in a Super 8 that when we walked out of the parking lot, we went down a block and turned left, and that's where the studio was.
We could just walk right to the studio, and it was super nice.
So we had 2 beds, 4 dudes. I do recall Josh waking up a few times saying that Ryan was spooning with him.
It was great for me. Most nights I woke up and Ryan's leg was like wrapped around my body.
Apparently I'm a cuddler.
And then I got stuck sleeping with Grant.
bulgari.
Grant always told me that I was taking up the whole bed.
You wanted 3/4 of the bed.
I had a very small sliver of the bed, and he just kept pushing further and further into me, trying to push me off the bed.
I had to fight for space.
Grant would get so driven into my side that he couldn't possibly get any closer to me, so he thought that I was taking up the whole bed.
He'd try to roll over on me, and I just kind of, nope.
I contemplated moving to the floor a few times.
Daddy.
You in bed? So the Senses was sent out as a demo. It wasn't a band song. We hadn't played it before. It was written as another project. It was going to be a band that I was creating called the Pastels.
The demo was Yet Still.
It was called Yet Still, all the way up until when we were going through the track list to the album and kind of refining, like, what is this, what we really want this to be called. We ended up going with the Senses, which is a much better name.
I only had heard it a couple times before we recorded it.
I don't think I actually heard it until it got thrown into the batch of stuff that we sent out.
It's about looking back on being young.
Ryan writes very visual songs, and they're usually about like one time and place. So I picture it as just like a moment in time.
That was who we were. That's who we'll never be again. Like that. I kind of saw it as a kind of like a pivotal changing point.
I really like how the song came out on the record.
The difference between the demo and the actual track that we have now is we turned it into a song. Like there's a verse, there's a chorus, there's a bridge. In the demo, I feel like it's just one flowing part.
In the demo, all the vocal parts, just this big mess of voices, and it was just kind of like an experiment.
The drums on here were a mix between live drums and digital.
I like it because I played everything separate. It wasn't like just like another rock song.
The thing that I liked a lot about it was the first time that you heard three voices on a track. It wasn't, wasn't just Ryan singing. It wasn't, just me singing backup parts along with him.
I actually did a lot of sleeping while the rest of the band did the work to put the album together.
Grant really flew through his bass parts, from what I remember.
I think he brought the groove that it needed. He just kind of went for what felt right.
Well, just you listen to it and you try to come up with something that doesn't fight with anything really, and try to tie the guitar and the drums together best I can.
I swear that things were different, like the world swam on, lost forever. That was who we were. That was who we'll never be again. World swam on at ease. Well, I can't be lost forever. The air used to say, a fire to the senses with the most dance. I can't be lost
Yeah.
forever. That was who we were. That was who we'll never be again.
Sorry, what was the question?
We were going through and we were trying to put little different instruments in it near the end. Nels had this melodica.
The melodica.
Here's a melodica. And what you do is you blow, and then all of your spit goes into it.
I'm playing this, I'm trying to come up with a part, and I'm sitting on the ground.
Ryan, in the middle of his creative genius, takes it, and he goes on the ground.
He laid down and he tipped the thing back.
Turns out, when you blow down into something, spit builds up. And when you lay back and gravity takes over, spit comes back down.
Next thing I know, he just starts gagging and spitting and just having a hissy fit.
It was like all the years of other people's using it just dumped in his mouth.
That was pretty gross, actually.
It was a great sound on the album, and it was something that we really needed to make the song complete, and Ryan paid the ultimate price.
So Darnay had this friend that lives out in California that he got a hold of. He lent us a bunch of snare drums to use for the recording.
A good friend of mine, Chris Arredondo, he borrowed us snare drums for the record. He opened up his closet that just had rows of snare drums, and he's like, take what you need. So we borrowed 3 that would definitely helped a lot.
I'd like to thank Chris for the use of the snares and the reverse cymbal. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so the reverse cymbal we added during the mixing process. We mounted up a cymbal and Chris hit it. We recorded it, put it in there, reversed it, and it worked perfectly. Yeah, so huge thank you to him and his wife Lindsay both. They definitely helped me out and hooked me up quite a few times. So, thank you.
So what Nels did at the end, there's a part where me and Josh are both screaming at the very end.
Yeah, it was a chorus echo.
And he put the feedback up and keeps the echo looping, and it would create this feedback noise, and then that's what you hear at the end of the song.
The chorus echo, it's unique. It has its own life. It is what those songs are at that time. And then we record over it because it's tape, and then you never hear it again. So there's something very special about it, I think.
It makes some of the cooler sounds on the album, for sure.
Who's on first?
Who?
What?
Who's on first?
I don't get the joke.
He's on first.
Like first base? What does this mean? Okay.
I remember writing Disappear. I was playing with this riff, and I just started writing, and I think I wrote the whole thing in one sitting, and I even started tracking it later the next day.
The demo is, it's acoustic for one thing, which is different, but yeah, it's more raw, bare bones version, which I like.
For as stripped down as it is, it's still sounds. It has a really big sound to it.
It's dynamically different than every song with the starts and stops.
This song's all about dynamics.
Doesn't really sound like any of the rest of the songs on the album.
I'm out on the street, staring at the tops of the buildings, cracked and crumbling.
The story is like, there's nothing new really going on in this town.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot going on there.
Redundancy. Just of life up here.
I wasn't really happy with things with myself, and I wanted to change myself.
I interpreted it as Ryan having to refine like his identity and kind of like where he falls into place.
One last face in this hopeless, God-forsaken town.
That one was very open to my interpretation of what should be placed where, which I appreciated.
In the demo, I tracked the drums and I tracked the bass.
They were Ryan's parts, and when Ryan writes drum parts, they're never anything that I would ever play or know how to play. So I got to basically rewrite all the parts on it, which was fantastic. That was my first one with that.
Both Josh and Grant are pretty good about that. I think they see it the way I see it. So we work together very well, and that's important for a team.
Stylistically, me and Ryan put notes together a lot differently. Like, we hear way different ideas for lines in our heads, and I feel like it helps a lot. Just you get insight into a different style, and it helps you grow as a musician. You just kind of take little elements out of all of that and try to build yourself a style.
Reinvent myself. I'm gonna become something else. I'm gonna recreate myself.
We would kind of explain to Nels what we were going for and tell him our ideas, and he had a lot of ideas of his own. And tonally, we kind of just let Nels do his thing. So he would be pairing up different pedals and stuff and going for different sounds and finding out what works.
Yeah, I was really into committing. And same with the guitar sound, same with the vocal sounds. It's like we try to get creative.
It's cool to let somebody put a spin on things and direct things. And it made this record what it is. We tracked an acoustic guitar in the bridge section, which is buried in there, and then there's a piano part. And the piano part was created between Grant and I, and Nell's playing some sort of an organ of some sort. So he's playing that, and someone's playing the acoustic guitar, and Grant and I are sitting on the piano, and I got this high melody, and Grant's kind of got this bass melody, and it's just this like soft little piano part in it, and it really, when it hits in the song, takes it someplace different, and it really brings a different light to it. It's like after all these hard guitars, it's like it kind of has this like light at the end of the tunnel kind of vibe. I don't know, or change. It adds a lot.
classic joke.
It's the pyramid.
It's like who's on first? Like I know.
Who's on first? His name is who?
Who's on first?
If This Is Love was created in a different writing style than a lot of other songs I've created.
You know, I've honestly never sat down and really thought about what this song means.
I phonetically came up with a lot of the lines.
Most of the words were made up when we started first jamming the song.
I'll sing a melody and I'll kind of make up words.
So the line, I feel like I'm making shit up, is legit. Like that's what was happening.
It's just kind of like the song kind of creates itself.
I tried to be honest, but that wasn't enough. I tried so many things that I just feel like giving up. This place is a prison now, darling, and I can't find my way out. If only there was something that I could say without making me scream and no shout.
In the demo, it was a very snarey snare.
In the demo, we used a wider snare.
So I remember going to Guitar Center and buying a bunch of snares, and we got one that was like 6 inches wide, and we put it on the bottom to try and give it that vibe.
I think it was like a 32 strand snare for the bottom, just to get that big snare drum sound at the beginning.
To be honest, but that wasn't enough. I tried so many things that I just feel like I'm making shit up. This place
Demoitis is a thing. We thought it was a fun idea to bring in some friends that we went to college with out there. So Mike and Leilani, they came in and we sat down and played with a bunch of different synths and tried to doing a bunch of different things.
Yeah, we tried to recreate it in the studio.
For some reason, we weren't sold on it. We were really kind of stuck on the demo for some reason.
I think we were having demoitis. We just wanted it to sound like the demo.
We ended up taking the synth that we had already had like automated and everything from the demo and placed it on the record, which meant we didn't use the parts that were played by them. Which now, I wish we would have just used what they played, because what they played was tonally and like the playing was a lot smoother and probably better than what we did. But yeah, sorry.
But yeah, I'd like to thank Mike and Leilani DeLay for coming over and laying down some keys and just spending time with us. And yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we're very grateful.
Then I thought you might be the first just to let me know. If this is love, then I've had enough.
Do you wanna race out of this place? 'Cause I cannot take it no more. I cannot take it no more. But do you wanna try
Get Out of Dodge,
to get out of this?
I wrote while I was still in high school.
I think it's just a song about wanting to leave where you are.
We can try to
Just getting the hell out of town.
To me, it just always kind of came off as like, you know, you grew up in a small town and all you want to do is leave it. You want to run away.
Forgetting everything and just getting into a car and driving away.
I'll try to close my eyes to blocking out the sunlight. Well, I wish I could make things things right, but it's too late for now. But we can get away, come on, it's you and me, we can make it out. Just like in our dreams, got a full tank, I'm ready to go. I got my foot resting on the pedal. We can take away down this road, and we can follow it wherever it may go. Just leave a note and end it with goodbye. Won't put this out to my taillights.
It is the oldest song on the album.
It's the oldest song on the record.
I didn't even have a license when I wrote the song.
I don't know if I could put a date on it, but it's one of the first bass lines that I came up with when I came into the band.
It's written on the back of some social studies homework. It's all crumpled and stained and stuff, but it's cool because it's like, that's how old it is.
Do you wanna run away from all of this? We'll bring whatever you want with. We can get out of Dodge. I really wanna be free. Rules and expectations. This is your open invitation to head out with me. I'm waiting for a sign, or some kind of notion. We can take off to the ocean or wherever you want.
How the song has progressed over the years was that it's developed more and more parts.
Progressed when we brought Darnay in, and we had a whole another world of opportunities with different lines to accentuate parts.
So that made the song really long.
In the studio, the song was too long, so rather than get rid of it, the compromise was to get rid of the second bridge.
Just kind of cut out that whole chill part before the explosion.
The drums got changed up a little bit.
Basically just build it bigger and bigger as we went through.
We kind of developed the bridge to be a bit different on the album and kind of build more, and especially with missing the solo part, we wanted it to build so that when it actually exploded, it made the explosion that much bigger.
We can get away, come on, it's you and me, we can make it out. Just like in our dreams, got a full tank, I'm ready to go. I got my foot resting on the pedal. We can take away down this road, and we can follow it wherever it may go. Just leave a note and end it with goodbye. And we'll put this down to my taillights, to my taillights, yeah, to my taillights. Yeah, we can put this down to my taillights.
So Breadcrumbs is kind of a story of one losing themselves within their own mind and having to come back from that.
It's always been more of a weird one. Like there was almost like a darker kind of like twist to the song.
Breadcrumbs is filled with crazy imagery. It's a weird depiction of reality.
This is one of my favorite songs on the album because I like the way the drums sound.
Specially designed to make you lose yourself within the recesses of your mind, of your mind, of your mind, of your mind.
This song was written away from the band with a couple other musicians.
It was originally written for a different project that involved other people that I wasn't involved. That was actually before I came in, even playing as a second guitar player.
Recorded the demo when I was living in an apartment with just this crummy computer, and I remember having Grant over, and he tracked the bass over this like beat that I had made, and yeah, I remember I recorded it with like a Radio Shack mic, and
I'll find you. Follow the shoreline.
yeah, for the longest time, I think it had two names. One was called Follow the Shoreline Home, and the other one was called Shroom Trip.
Yeah, it was Shroom Trip.
Yeah, it was dubbed Shroom Trip for the longest time. Probably up until right before we went out to LA is when we finally had to kind of give it a title.
Yeah, we ended up going with breadcrumbs. I think it's the Hansel and Gretel idea of leaving behind breadcrumbs so you know your way back home. Too Fast Too Soon was a song about being somebody's memories.
I always assumed that it was about Ryan thinking that he's like a memory shoved into a box from like an ex-girlfriend or something.
From what I always kind of took from this song was your main person in the song had like a kind of a previous life that was no longer played out in a certain direction, certain way, and just kind of got torn down, thrown into a box, and slid out of the picture.
And in any failed relationship, knickknacks and things and pictures and stuff kind of get stored away, and they get shoved in little corners of the room, are forgotten, and or maybe eventually just thrown away.
But that life still lived within the confines of that box. We didn't go in and record it how we traditionally played it before.
The song got completely torn apart in the studio. Like, top to bottom, nothing remained the same except for the lyrics.
When we tracked it, I think we came in and tracked it like we would play it live. We didn't know what we wanted to do with it.
Well, it was somewhat of a straightforward song that we had a structure to.
But it just felt bland. It felt like every other song.
Trying to come up with anything in the studio that we could find to change it up.
It was nice because we actually had a little bit of time to experiment with stuff and just kind of see like where it was going. We got to try like gear in different ways, and it was it was fun. We just experimented until we got something that was cool.
There's a drum machine that it starts out with. It's a Wurlitzer Sideman.
It was a Sideman? Wurlitzer Sideman? That was the basic kick drum in it.
Like one of like the earliest drum machines. It's like this big wooden box kind of thing that had buttons on the top, and it had all these different things inside of it that would make the sounds.
And so yeah, we found a couple really cool sounds on it, and so that was the beginning of us adding stuff in there.
And once we found a beat on that changed the song entirely, and then we're just trying to see how we could make it weird.
And then the rest of the percussion was done when we got back to Minnesota.
Josh and I added some other sounds to this song too. We wanted more samples in there.
We made a bunch of noises in his garage, like chains dropping into a bucket.
Tools falling on the ground, and like at one point I grabbed a rubber hammer and I hit the big dumpster in our alley.
And then we put it on a sampler, and then we just played the beat.
We turn all those sounds into an instrument, and that's what you hear when the song explodes.
'Cause I'm just a box sitting underneath your bed. Look what you done, look where we are. Yeah, I'm the last night before you call it. Come so far, but we've got nowhere.
After tracking the drum machine, I think we wanted some pads in it. We wanted a droney note to play through the whole thing that kind of just built tension. And so Nels was playing with the B3, and he was building a chord out of it that would match the song. And so he was holding this chord, and it just had this vibe to it. So Nels was going to track it, and I looked back, and Nels is wearing a cape.
It's kind of creepy.
This is the one that Nels had the cape on.
Why was Nels wearing a cape?
Don't recall how he got to the cape being a thing. Yeah, that escapes me.
Why did he have a cape lying around?
I mean, I just have capes. I mean, that's not weird.
I've always assumed that he had a cape laying around for like a Dungeons and Dragons conference or something.
There's nothing wrong with owning a cape.
Nels felt that he needed a cape for the part, which is understandable.
Phantom of the Opera, I think that's what I was maybe trying to do. So, I felt like Phantoms had like capes.
Nels put on a cape, and he played this chord for probably about 6 minutes. And while he was doing that, the organ was ringing out these notes, and there was a snare drum sitting in the room that was vibrating with the organ. And it kind of had this rhythmic tapping to it, because the organ had a speaker that would spin around.
A Leslie rotary cabinet. They had a speaker that actually spins in the bottom of it.
That was really adding a lot to it. So we actually mic'd up that snare drum too.
And mic'd the vibration of that the speaker was making the snare vibrate. And that was what we used for the background sound of it. It was our last night in the studio. We went for a walk. And we walked from the studio down to the gas station.
We all just had like the voice memos open on our phone and went for a walk and recorded the city around where the studio was.
And record kind of the sounds of Pasadena and stuff, and add a texture to the background of the song.
We wanted like eerie noises, so all the noises in the background are cars going by us and just us having a conversation.
We walked to 7-Eleven, and all of us had like our phone synced, and we actually ended up using it, and it was cool. I hope that's a layer that like translates to other people, because I mean I feel like there may have been like a lot of things that like may have been secret to us, but I mean that's the beauty of making a record too. It's like you have all these secrets. But yeah, I hope that you know the funness and the experimenting really transferred over.
We left, and the song and the session was kind of in shambles. There's just stuff everywhere.
It was just noise. It was just all these things playing at one time and nothing having its place. And
I personally didn't think it was ever even going to get used because of the state of where it sat and where we left it.
I think it was pretty close to the chopping block. No one was really happy with it.
By far the hardest one that we did and the most struggle. And the most temporary quitting I've ever seen for any of our songs.
We kind of thought it was a failed effort. We put all these awesome sounds into it, and it wasn't going to work out.
But then with a lot of, I guess you could say, post-production work and a lot of Ryan sitting in front of the session, he was able to create the song and turn it into what it became.
I don't know why it was so hard, because I feel like we're all relatively good at building songs together, but for some reason pulling this one apart and starting over from scratch didn't really sit well with anybody.
Before we were completely just through with the song, we were going to call it quits. I spent a day with it and just cut up all my favorite parts of it and laid them out and organized them.
I remember the first time it was emailed to me and I listened to it, I thought he completely redid it all from scratch because it didn't even sound like anything like the way that we had left it. And suddenly there was a song made out of what I thought was just a mess of noise. But yeah, it ended up working out with, some rearrangements and redoing some stuff at home. And
all happy accidents, all things that led to things that ended up being what makes the song.
it turned out to be like the perfect kind of little intermission song that it needed to be.
It ended up being one of my favorite songs on the record. Spring Fling. I don't actually remember writing the words to Spring Fling. I guess the meaning of the song is about like infidelity and how you're not gonna stick around for somebody who isn't there for you.
How long do you put your life on hold for someone else, knowing that you might just be like second best or something? That's kind of what I always took from it.
It's the old jazzy song. It's a good dancier song. Usually, if there are dancers in the audience, they're usually up for that.
I think that this is the most danceable song on the album and in our live show.
Your first idea of the song was laid out. I do remember sitting on the corner on a bench on Howard Street playing the song, and people were driving by throwing change at us, and that's kind of where the second guitar parts and like the harmonies and stuff were written, sitting on that street bench.
It started very much in a jam format where we would just all kind of make up stuff. And so I had that riff and I had these words.
A truly good jam, it's like connecting with someone without having to speak. You just know what they're doing, you try to play off it, and it's like having a conversation without words. When I started playing music, it was all jams at my brother's house on the couch. Just, this one's blues and B. Put your finger here, and the other finger here.
This song is special because it is a jazzy-like song. It's got a vibe that no other song has in our catalog. And it's all because of Grant that it has this sound.
This is a total Grant song. Like when I think of Grant and his bass playing, this is Grant to me.
I've always enjoyed watching Grant play this song. It's probably the busiest bass line that he's ever put to anything. His hands are constantly moving.
I feel like the bass line made it into a whole new monster.
He brought this walking bass line in, and it's really what gives it that swing vibe. It makes the song.
I remember bass in the studio for this because this was the first song in there where I really listened to the bass and was like, yeah, Grant's a way better musician than me.
I don't even know how his brain ever came up with that part, but it's just always been fun just to watch him, because he just blows my mind when he plays that song.
I don't know, it just felt right. I wanted a walking bass line, and I liked those chords to do it, and nobody said, hey, that sucks, don't do that.
There's tambourine in it, and I remember Josh playing.
It was me and Grant in the live room, and I was playing the tambourine onto my crotch as a joke.
No.
This was that moment, Grant.
No.
But I only did a couple takes, and I feel like Nels actually used that one.
There was a B3 organ that was run into a Leslie rotary cabinet.
A lot of the keys on this record were both me and Grant. Grant knows his musical theory more than I do.
I can kind of wrap my head around it, so I know what should fit. So I just try to make something happen from that.
He brings things to the table that I would never even think of. Usually what we'll do is kind of toss those parts back and forth, and in the end come up with a thing that we both kind of created and choose whatever serves the song.
It's so throwbacky. It doesn't sound like anything else on the album, and especially after coming out of such a weird intermission that was Too Fast. It just Too Fast ends, and it's just like boom, right into the next song, and then just takes off. And like I feel like the whole second half of the record has a completely different tone than the first half, and it all started right there with that song.
When I wrote Life Under the Influence, it was a story of a night of a house party and its subsequent walk home.
I don't know, I mean, it was about a party.
Well, it's weird. You're growing up in a town that's pretty much on its way out. Everything that was fun when you were younger is just kind of gone, and you're trying to find something else to do. So a lot of the house parties, people get together and just hang out.
I wouldn't change the fact that I grew up there. I had a good time when I was a kid. We were just, young, and we found things to do. Back then, it was pretty much everything was we were either at the skate park or we were at somebody's house, and that was pretty much all there was to do. There's nothing to do there. Even as a kid, there wasn't really anything to do. That was pretty much it.
The world is partying tonight. Must be the only one.
The only thing about this song is that there's no chorus. It's just story. It's just from beginning to end.
Constantly changing while staying the same, to where I can actually picture, like, while listening to it, like intermingling with a whole bunch of different people in a large setting of people.
It was kind of an experiment in that aspect where could a song still be good without a hook? And I think that that's where it spawned from.
It's weird that it doesn't really change throughout it, but it kind of feels like it does. I got a couple of different parts so I can try to give it some different energy.
I like that it has song structure, but there's really zero song structure. So it feels like there is, but really if you listen to the song, there isn't. It's just one long paragraph.
Everything happens in the lyrics and the storytelling of it.
It's a story. It wasn't like, sure, it's laid out as a song, but it's a story start to finish. And it was more about the words than about the music. When we started playing the acoustic version of it and it was a little more slowed down, that's when you could kind of hear the story take over more so than the music of the song.
When it's slower, gives the breathing room to the words.
Wish I could be like that, but I can't pull it off like you do. Preoccupied with.
There's a focus in this song where I make notice of somebody being very promiscuous, and it's not a female. It's a guy.
You're such a you-know-what.
I had a few people say that, like, that we shouldn't use that word, that it was demeaning to women, and you mean about the guy? Like, when the word is said, it is not about a girl. Let's get that out. It's not about a female.
Every word, each line gets more absurd and misstrewn. The more that I would.
There's no intro. It just comes in straight out of the gate, which is great. I love that because it catches you so quickly.
For like an aesthetic effect, we cut the guitar out and just had it start with just the vocal track because it kind of jumped out at you more.
It wasn't always that way. There was a point where in the session I wrote, is this part boring? And then Nels had taken a picture of that session and put it on his Instagram and was like, yes. And he's right. And that's actually what's cool, because it's right out of the gate, it hits you. It's probably one of the most energetic songs on the album. That lends to the specialness of it.
It's got energy.
I remember this one getting knocked out pretty quick from what I remember. Very straightforward, everything was kind of there, and I don't remember having to do too much extra stuff on it. It was just a very straightforward song to begin with.
Crossroads is a real place. It's a gas station,
There's a gas station called Crossroads outside of Hibbing a little bit.
but it's also a common theme in songs, and so it's funny that it's literal and it's metaphorical.
About this character who's just kind of goes out of town, is looking for something that I guess will direct them in a certain way or a certain direction.
This was one of my favorite songs, born of just jamming.
With the bass, I just always remember him being very percussive, playing it with more of his hand.
A slap of the bass on that song, man.
So then he'd just be bashing his bass.
It was the first little riff that I came up with, that was slap bass. And it was always just a groove to that song that I just fell in love with. What do you think, Josh?
I don't know what Grant plays on this song. I'm sure it's great. Usually is.
But at least still got you, babe.
I feel like the song has maybe like a southern swing, in a way. At least that's kind of what I was going for.
It had more of almost a more up-tempo version of like what reminded me of kind of like an old Western kind of vibe song.
I think the bridge on this song is really, really pretty. I do like the bridge. This is one of my favorite bridges that we have.
To do these almost like eerie kind of sustained like parts in the background.
There was a guitar at the studio that had a pickup in it, and it creates a magnetic field and it vibrates the string. And so you're able to kind of make the string have infinite sustain. So it just sits there making a note.
We used there's a Fernandez guitar that had a sustain pickup that was in it.
It's a very unique thing. This was one of the last ones I think that we needed to mix before we could bounce out to tape and call it done.
The biggest struggle was just kind of, we were just trying to cram everything and get everything done at the end, and I feel like the song fell victim to like the rush to try to get it done.
This song is about my inability to write anything that's not true.
Majority of everything was always real. It was always an experience or a story or a time, something that we did throughout life.
Every song on this album has a true story attached to it.
Can't think of anything that wasn't real or didn't actually happen.
The song is about life. It's actually about me becoming a writer and me becoming a musician.
When it came to this, we just wrote about the things that we knew, and I feel like that's what the song was about.
Music is life. Music equals life.
This song was written during my first little hiatus.
Darnay went on a hiatus. He quit the band.
He stopped. He just took a break. And I don't know what Grant was doing the whole time.
I don't know what Grant was doing.
Where was I? Because I also don't know. The history is really sketchy.
It was just Josh and I, and we were gonna start up a two-man band.
Yeah, myself and Ryan created Average Mammals as a two-piece.
So we were trying our best to figure out how we could play shows.
The hardest thing was trying to get two people to sound like four people.
I started buying equipment.
We went through a ton of gear trying to find something where we could loop either guitar or bass.
Nonfiction was written on bass first. It was all bass, and I was the bass player.
We went back and forth, and we tried looping guitar, and it wasn't really working out with the pedal.
It was hard for Josh to kind of stay on with the loop because he doesn't have like a metronome or anything. But what we ended up doing is buying what's called the SPDSX. It's got 9 sample pads on it, and you can put whatever sounds you want on it, and you can make them loop and do all sorts of stuff.
I had bass samples on the SPD, so I could fill it in with the low end through that, going through the mains, and it sounded really cool actually.
It was working.
And once it finally started to work, then Grant came back from wherever he was, and Darnay came back, and they said they wanted to play again. And we're like, oh, okay.
I think it helped Josh and I grow together as musicians too, and that was important. We joined a contest.
It was like a Battle of the Bands contest on Touch Tunes.
We're super psyched, telling everyone, play it, play it.
So I remember walking down to the closest bar to where I was living to find it, and it was neat to see that it was on there.
The first time playing it in a bar, it was the coolest.
It was one of my favorite moments because I got to look around and see if anybody was tapping their toes.
And it's still up there.
And now you can find the song in your local Touch Tin jukeboxes.
But until then, I'll just keep writing until the ink dries up and out of this pen, and then I lose all recollection. Thank you.
Cigarettes is a song about a relationship that's not good for you, put up against an addictive substance like cigarettes.
I don't know, I still get a headache thinking about the song because I got a headache every time we played it.
It's good to be loud sometimes. Just try to slap the bass as hard as I can.
That was the whole thing of this song, was it was like, I'm gonna try to make the heaviest song I can, and that is what this became.
I remember when I heard it, it was kind of the introduction to adding like the screaming and stuff into the songs. Like suddenly there's this whole new element of everything, and there's screaming involved.
It's a really good encore song because it catches people off guard.
Usually they love it. Or they already left because they didn't like us.
It was called Yet to Be Named for years.
Yet to be named, which isn't really a name. It's like calling it Untitled.
Yet to be named. And then we named it.
It was later at night, and I guess one of the neighbors to the studio came over and knocked on the door and asked if we would be quiet.
Yes, the people that were across the hall, I think, they complained.
You guys gotta keep it down. I've been listening all day and blah, blah, blah.
There was a nice lady next door trying to sleep at 1 in the morning.
And we had to stop tracking for the night, if I remember right.
The vocals were the struggle for me.
Ryan blew his voice out.
When I was cutting vocals for this, I lost my voice because it was so much yelling and screaming.
Seemed like we did the heavy songs like back to back.
Yeah, I fried my voice doing this song. It was hard to do anything after that. It's such a simple song. There's really nothing crazy about it. It hits so hard, and we always like to pull it out near the end. We'll end up turning around and cranking up our guitar amps and just being loud. Conversations is basically just a look back. It's a story about growing up in a little town.
Late Night Conversations, to me, is a song about being young and dreaming of the stuff that you want to or think you can do in the future.
Growing up north, talking with friends and being around good people, trying to make the best of what you got.
I remember when I first heard it, it just took me back and reminded me of countless times we just talked about all these like aspiring things that we wanted to do.
We were going for like a campfire feel.
Kind of like people just hanging around and chilling out in the backyard.
We had even mentioned trying to record it that way, just downstairs all together in a circle or whatever, and we ended up multi-tracking it out.
Which is a really cool vibe, and I think it came across really good. Everything, all the instruments are very airy and open on it.
And yeah, a lot of the elements, we just kind of tried to keep them feeling that way. Some of the sounds on this song are really cool. The drum sound is super unique.
And this is another one, I tracked everything separate, which is a really fun way to track percussion.
The kick drum on this song, we actually used this big like circus kick drum.
Nels put another kick drum in front of that, and then we put a blanket over the two.
So we actually used another kick drum to trigger, in a sense, the bigger one, so that every time we'd hit the kick drum, it would project out of that drum and hit the bigger drum, and then caused that drum to then make a sound.
It's supposed to make it deeper. For that particular song, I wanted to get different. I mean, because that song's not like any other song on the record. So it was just kind of more fun to get wacky with it, which I think worked.
We had Jake come in.
Jake Campbell, one of our longtime friends that we went to school with and grew up with, lived in LA at the time. He guest starred on the song and sang backup harmonies.
It was nice to have another voice in there, and especially on the song about friendship. Like, let's have our friends on it, you know? It's cool, and it was nice to have him on there. So thank you, Jake Campbell. Thank you for cutting harmonies on the song. We appreciate it.
I thought it turned out really well, and that it was neat having us all working on it together, and it was a good way to put an end to the album.
There's no arguments, there's no hard feelings. We're all in good mood, not sweaty. We didn't drive through the desert at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. That was mostly sarcasm.
No, you can't tell the sun when it rises. No, but this time it's taking requests enough for the spotlight, because it ain't even worth the pain.
The drive back home it seemed shorter than the drive there, which is nice because on the way there we have anticipation of what's going to happen. And the drive home we actually went straight through. We didn't do any stops.
Right in a hotel bed, I'm made into Rembrandt in my childhood room. These faces and pictures are strangers, and it's like their lives no longer exist. So nice.
It was definitely a big part of my life, all of our lives.
Hey, could you tell me how you turn on them tears, darling? Feels like I haven't heard.
I mean, we got to go out to Pasadena and take over a studio like it was our own for a month, as long as we cleaned up after ourselves.
I'd rather breathe my last dying breath than become your backup boyfriend. Honey, I won't stick around. Honey, this is gonna end. I'd rather breathe my last dying.
Right when we got into Minnesota, we knew we were in Minnesota because the mosquitoes just came out.
As soon as you hit the state line, there's mosquitoes everywhere, which I thought was very strange that you don't get them in the States before, but as soon as you cross that line, they're everywhere. When we got back to Minnesota, we stopped at a rest stop.
Some rest stop with a park.
There was a little tire swing, and Grant was rolling around on it, smoking a cigarette, and he was happy, and it was such a good feeling to be back home. And then you get back in the car and you realize you have another 4 hours before you're really home. So those 4 hours were long.
We did a lot of, editing and such at home and sending sessions back and forth. And then almost a year after we had come home, I flew back out there, went and bounced the mixes down to tape. We sat and just worked on, pumping the mixes out while Ryan was on Skype sitting in front of a computer for 2 days, pretty much.
I attended most of that session through Skype, sending mixes back and forth, and we were discussing the things that we liked and the things that we didn't like, and we were trying to hammer this all out.
Josh had come out.
I went back to LA for a vacation, and I stopped by the studio, and it was very intense in that room, and it was very quiet. There wasn't a lot of talking, and Ryan was on Skype listening to everything and watching.
I was just trying to do my best to help in any way I could to make this record the best that we could make it.
It was definitely neat given the opportunity to go out there. Nels definitely did a lot for us to let us come out and do that.
I really would like to thank Nels. He dedicated a lot of his time to give us a chance to try to record something, and that was huge.
Large thank you to Nels for bringing us out and helping us make this album and really fulfilling a dream that we probably all would have never thought we could achieve.
Without Nels, this record would have been impossible, and we very much appreciate that. It's meant a lot to us, so thank you, Nels. Thank you very much.
When did the feeling set in, and when did it fade? When did it fade? I remember you and I at the old arcade. We were afraid. I used to leave my window with my bed to the wall and get lost in the sky. Well, I can't be lost forever. That was who we were. Oh, our time, that was who we'll never stars, carving names into the braces. The echoes of our laughter and true wonder in our faces, like we're lost inside a daydream, blind to the true grit of reality. I'd swear that things were different, like the world swirled more at ease. Lost forever, that was who we were. Oh, our time flies, who will never be again. World swirled more at ease. Well, I can't be lost forever. Air used to say, without you to the senses, we world swirled more at ease. Well, I can't be lost forever. That was who we were. Oh, our time flies. That was who will never be again. World swirled more at ease. Well, I can't be lost forever.